Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. We are coming off an incredibly active month of April with over 300 tornadoes confirmed so far. And unfortunately, as we head into next week, it's looking extremely busy. So if we take a look at the latest satellite picture, you can see the culprit. We've got a pretty active subtropical jet stream pushing in all that Gulf moisture. And yet last night we had storms that formed along the dry line, and that blew up some larger hail producers. And unfortunately, several tornadoes were reported out here in West Texas. But look at the convective complex that went through the overnight hours, left a lot of heavy rainfall for those areas in southeast Houston. Man, that area has been inundated with a lot of heavy rainfall, and that convective complex this morning has continued to unload that precipitation along the coast and there to Louisiana and portions of Arkansas. And further up to the north, look at that, folks. That is actually snow that is falling out in Wyoming. So, there's some colder air behind it. And yet we have another system that will be coming behind that one in the Pacific Northwest. So, if we take a look at the setup, you can see that colder push of air, right? Here is the colder anomalies. That's why it's actually snowing underneath that cloud top. And further to the south, we've got the southwest winds, just a warmer wind coming off the Gulf. And there's the dry line that looks to get activated again in the heat of the afternoon. And yes, that will set the stage for more storms to form along the dry line. But overall, here's the radar setup as we head later on this afternoon. We've got that convective complex that's highlighted across Louisiana, back into Arkansas this morning. And yes, there is the snow that's falling in portions of Wyoming as the colder air continues to push from the northwest. And as we head into the afternoon, we see that little convective complex pushing off into the east, spreading some light to moderate showers through areas of the southeast, much of Kentucky, portions of West Virginia, as well as into Pennsylvania. And there it is again, folks. Yes, as we heat up the atmosphere, we are going to be looking at some more storms that form along the dry line. And yes, these could be some larger hail producers and unfortunately spin up some more isolated tornadoes within this region. But this time, I think there's a secondary push with that polar jet, that cooler pocket of air coming in from the north. So we'll also have to be concerned up here through Kansas as well as into Nebraska for some storms later on this evening. So here's the setup from the Storm Prediction Center. I think things get going again into the heat of the afternoon, into the early evening. We did, in fact, have yet another upgrade in West Texas. A lot of the same areas that unfortunately produced that tornado yesterday near the Abilene region or just north of there. And further north, we're looking at another pocket of energy that comes across Kansas as well as into portions of Nebraska. These could be some larger hail producers and unfortunately some isolated spin-up tornadoes as well. And that convective complex will be traversing eastbound into the overnight hours, back into that waterlogged area in portions of Texas. So you can see the setup. Here's the radar depiction, heading into Saturday. So yes, we'll have another convective complex that kind of blows up into West Texas. I think there'll be a stronger disturbance that comes off that subtropical jet stream. That'll push in some more lift and likely some heavier rains. And I think this time, this energy would likely push across and spread more widespread activity in a good part of Texas, while that first system continues to take advantage of that southwest flow and continues to push some of those isolated, scattered, moderate thunderstorms across this region through the east and a good part of the Tennessee Valley, as well as into the Ohio Valley and up here towards the Mid-Atlantic. But you can see kind of a little that cool front, right? And ahead of that cool front, that is going to set the stage for the greatest lift and produce some isolated severe storms into the heat of the afternoon on Saturday. So looking at the Storm Prediction Center, they do in fact highlight that risk out ahead of that little cool front. Again, the dry line gets active again, likely into West Texas with more supercell thunderstorms. And then you have activation along the dry line through Oklahoma, as areas into Illinois, back into Missouri, as well as into Arkansas, fishtailing further south into central Texas, as well as into East Texas. And overall, the next 48 hours kind of looks like this. So you've got these multiple systems coming off the more active subtropical jet. the dry line gets activated in the heat of the afternoon, and these push across with this large starting off with the severe risk, and then as they head into the overnight hours, lose their intensity and just become more of a heavier rain risk. So if you look at the intensity on radar, yeah, wherever you see those darker reds and especially the purples, that indicates where you're going to be seeing the most significant, at least the heavier rainfalls across the south. But look at the widespread activity, folks. I mean, it's going to be very active for the next 48 hours and leave a pretty good swath of precipitation in its wake as those storms that will form off the dry line that will continue to push eastbound, taking advantage of the warm sector here across the south and as well as into the Ohio Valley. And this would likely spread into portions of the mid-Atlantic. And it doesn't really stop there, folks. So you've got that cool front dropping further south, so you can see where likely it'll be pushing in that cooler anomalies. But yes, out ahead of it, there's the warmer air mass, and it just puts this whole area into play. Now, this would likely not be severe, but it's going to bring additional showers in a good part of the south, good part of the southeast, as well as up the east coast through the Carolinas, into portions of West Virginia, back into Virginia, as well as into New Jersey this time, and getting up into New York, all the way up into Vermont and New Hampshire. And yeah, that's another trough that likely will be coming in as we kick off Monday, which would likely set its own beginning of likely a 4-day event, unfortunately, of severe storms that could include a tornado outbreak in the middle of it. So that's the concern heading into next week, because it's looking extremely busy on the setups, and the culprit is just this clash of temperatures. So we're going to have this ridge that's going to be trying to slowly lift from Mexico, pulling in the warmest temperatures so far we've actually seen this season. A lot of the dew points are going to be high across the south here, and those we already have some slight and moderate risk for excessive heat down this region. Comparison to this time of year, some of those heat indices will be going into the triple-digit range. At the same time, we've got that colder pocket that will be coming in from the northwest, and it's always this zone is a battleground zone, will likely set the stage for severe storms, and this would likely have upscale growth as we get into multiple disturbances throughout the week. So we're looking for a widespread event for severe storms, literally really from Monday all the way to Friday. Looks unfortunately extremely busy. So here's the setup for Monday. There's the set. You always got when you look at this and you look at this kind of this horseshoe type shape with this deepening area of low pressure, as the trough will be likely going negatively tilted, that it typically implies there's going to be a lot of lift and a lot of shear at the surface and be activated, clashing in with those warmer temperatures, with the colder temperatures coming from the northwest. And that will set the stage for the beginning stages across the plains for a renewed severe storm risk into the heat of the afternoon. So, and then I think it doesn't really stop there, because there's going to be a little bit more significant system, as this first system will be more upscaled growth, expanding with that low pressure now highlighted across the Dakotas. And then further to the south, back into Illinois, I think this time will be activated in the severe storms through portions of Missouri and back into areas of Kansas, as this whole system would likely extend into further areas into Indiana, and yes, back into Ohio would likely come in back into the picture for severe storms. So, and it's going to have an abundance amount of moisture associated with it. I showed you that ridge back in Mexico. That's going to be slowly trying to build further north. That's going to push the warmer anomalies and the warmer dew points further north as well. So you see these 70s, if not almost upper 70s, highlighted across the Gulf of Mexico. That pushes northbound. So the further north this gets, those higher 60 dew points surge all the way to Indiana, into Illinois, and even into Wisconsin. So I think this is going to be more of a widespread event than what we saw just a couple of days ago, as this would likely spread eastbound through the Ohio Valley, and it didn't really stop there. So the breakdown for those 2 days, this is Monday and Tuesday of next week, and it's definitely concerning. There you see the Storm Prediction Center did in fact upgrade that even already to that enhanced risk along areas into Nebraska as well as Kansas, into Oklahoma. And there's the overall learning model putting out an extremely concerning look with that setup along the dry line there, as things will get activated. And I think large scale supercell thunderstorms would likely explode and take advantage of the warm sector and have some larger hail and unfortunately more tornadoes coming back in the picture for Kansas as well as into Oklahoma. And I think this only continues to push as we head into Tuesday. So that likely extends into Illinois, back into Indiana, as well as into Ohio. Then it spreads further north, even into Wisconsin, and back into Michigan, and even as far eastbound as West Virginia could likely see some severe storms, and further south into Tennessee, as well as into Arkansas. And then Northeast Texas would kind of be in the tail end of this, with the main highlighted areas across Illinois as well as into Indiana. But it really didn't stop there, folks. It's an extremely busy week. Here is the setup on Wednesday if we start to see another little dip in the overall jet stream. And it really doesn't take much this time of year to activate the trigger, especially with the setup that we have looking, coming up, because we have a very intense warm sector to the south and southeast, and we've got that cooler pocket coming in from the northwest, and it's always that clash of temperatures, and you get that little bit of a buckle that's going to cause the air to, and then a lot of shear at the surface, and unfortunately bring more tornadoes within the plains region. And that would likely extend in through the Ohio Valley again, even heading into that Thursday, Friday timeframe. So it looks to be an incredibly busy week with a lot of moisture pulling into these areas. So as we even head into Thursday, we're going to be seeing that above average, moisture content pulling in from the southwest winds, feeding into that area of low pressure center that would likely deepen up here into Minnesota. And out ahead of it, you've got these areas into Illinois, back into Indiana, going into Ohio, as well as into Kentucky, back into areas of Tennessee would likely be under the gun. So even it's this far out, heading into Wednesday and heading into that, Thursday timeframe, that's even more concerning. This is a pretty bullish setup even right now. So here's your Wednesday setup from the Storm Prediction Center, already highlighting this risk across North Texas and Northeast Texas through Oklahoma, as well as into Arkansas and well as into Missouri. But it's likely going to be more of an upscale growth event again that would likely extend through Illinois, back into Indiana, through areas of Ohio, with the main bullseye, if you will, back in western Tennessee, areas of northern portions of Arkansas, as well as areas into Kentucky, Indiana, as well as into Ohio, and then even into Thursday. I think it even continues to remain active. So it's going to be an incredibly busy week. It's kind of a long duration event for severe storms as we head into the most really active time frame of severe storm season. So yes, it's definitely concerning that it's these weather setups look so incredibly bullish even this far out. And really, again, the culprit is going to be this ridge of high pressure that's going to be slowly lifting out of Mexico. That's pulling the warmest anomalies we've seen so far this season. And that is going to be the reason, on top of the incredibly cooler air mass that will be coming in from the northwest. And you've got the more active subtropical jet stream. You got the polar jet with multiple low pressure centers coming off that polar jet, would tap into the warm sector, getting activated across the plains, and eventually spreading, lifting through the Ohio Valley. More upscaled growth would push it north, and then this would likely push it east as we get deeper into the week of next week. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after storm.